All right, Matt, this is your first fictional aerial vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
Off camera, you were telling me some of the stuff you saw looking at this back aesthetic panel, and I wanted to talk about that.
Sure. What would you like to know?
Well, I mean, like, I have dug through bins at Ajax Electronics down in LA and pulled parts out to aestheticize stuff. You recognize some stuff here.
Yeah, I recognize actually a lot of stuff on it, and most maintenance people, if you took a look at that, would go, oh, yeah, okay, that's what that is. These are plastic caps for plugging hydraulic lines.
Right.
These are actually, this is the same thing that's inside this tube to seal the tube, and these particular ones, these 90-degree ones, we used to look for those.
Really?
They're really expensive, those little pieces right
Just
there.
this little piece?
Just that little piece, because you do something at an angle. You do a straight one, that's really easy, but
Yeah.
the expensive ones are hard to make, and so they charge a lot more of them. And then we've got lock nuts here. We've got nut plates all over the place. These are fabric fasteners to clip on liners in the ceiling.
Well, look, I know the original lightsaber is a Graflex flash handle, and I know that some of the old camera people are a little pissed off about it because it's raised the price on their antique camera equipment because it's also a film prop. I mean, are you seeing stuff here that would have been really expensive if you needed to find it?
Some of that, yeah.
Amazing.
And then some of the things that we see, like these are fuel screens right here.
Yeah.
And so finding those now, I mean, these are the same things that are used on warbirds, and they're really hard to find.
And yet this was pulled out of some bin
But this was built, 20 years ago when they weren't so hard to find.
Yeah. How is it working on a fictional vehicle as opposed to a real one? Is there some cognitive dissonance?
When you first start, sure.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a project that needs to go from start to finish and not miss anything along the way. Just if I was going to do an annual on an airplane or a jet, inspect an engine, do any kind of overhaul, it's the same kind of mentality that just going through the project.
So it is very similar.
It's very similar.
Now your team, you guys have to hang this thing.
Yes, absolutely.
And it wasn't built to hang.
No, it was actually built to sit on the ground. It's gravity-wise.
Right.
This is built to do it this way, not this way.
So what are some of the challenges in getting it up into the air?
Well, first of all, we looked at each one of these pieces, and each one of these sections has 3 lift points. And that was just...
So each wing, each engine,
fuselage has two larger ones, and then again 3 and 3 over here.
Wow.
And so those were really, each piece of those pieces weighs about 1,000 pounds. So mostly they're only getting about 350 pounds a piece on them. So that's not a lot of load on that. But we are going to... You
guys aren't going to do 14 pick points.
We're not going to do 14 pick points. We're only going to do 7 pick points. We wanted to get it down to 5, but then we thought, you know what? We just need to have some insurance in there. So we added 2 back in.
In the 7 pick points, you're still distributing the loads out on the wings and the engines to sort of balance it out?
Yeah. We built a rigging fixture that goes internally into this.
Wow.
And so the rigging fixture is designed to not be visible except for 2 small points that stick out where we're going to attach our fittings.
Right.
And that rigging fixture, we want as best as possible to not change the structure.
Of course.
So we've gone in and built this rigging fixture so it sandwiches around each joint and then spreads the load across the beam inside there.
Wow.
And picks it up from the bottom rather than lifting it from the top.
Oh, interesting. I see. Nice.
And that is what we found, that on all of these hoist points out there, all the plates are on the top, and we need that extra added insurance.
Of course.
And so that distributes the weight out, and it ends up being primarily the weight gets picked in the middle, and then the 2 outer points on each wing carry half the weight of the wing itself.
And am I right? It's not just going to hang flat. It's probably going to hang in some dynamic way.
Well, we're going to try to put a tilt and a nose down to it.
Oh, nice.
But we're still determining exactly what the angle that we're going to get, because we have to think about what structure we have in the ceiling to support it. If they're going to have to put more steel in there. Yeah. And what kind of room do we have with all of the things that are up in the ceiling? And we have to have a minimum distance above the floor. So that the tallest person in the world can't jump it, but touch it.
Right. You have to accommodate.
So we have to maintain that.
Now, I know that Lucasfilm, that Disney supplied you guys with documentation about how this goes together, etc.
Right.
Are you also building documentation about your modifications to give back to them when this eventually goes back to them?
Absolutely. And we're doing it for whoever comes down the road.
Right.
Because sooner or later, this thing's going to have to come back off the ceiling.
Right.
And, I might not be here at that time. So we're building that, an assembly and disassembly plan.
Amazing.
And so that when it goes downtown, we can teach. We're not the ones that actually put it together.
Right.
We have contractors put it together downtown. And they come out and work with us and look at it and see how it comes apart. And then when we go down there, we stand by and advise them as they're putting it together.
Right. So there must be some cases in which Lucasfilm's documentation wasn't 100% correct, and maybe you guys are also modifying some of that?
Well, also, we are modifying the rigging stuff.
Yeah.
That's not in their documentation.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's all us, and we have to make the documentation for that and the plans for that and throw that into the system.
So have you... am I correct in assuming that someone had to crawl inside this and do some welding in some very close quarters inside this thing?
Yeah, actually, we've had two or three people do it. We've had one of our other people, Bridget and Heather, are the ones that have been crawling inside doing all the assembling. They've been the ones installing this rigging fixture.
Amazing.
Because they fit. I don't.
Right.
And, well, I do, but it just, it's painful. And we've had Kenny, our welder, and Megan, the two fabricators, have come in and made this stuff. I drew up a plan for for lifting it, and the fabricators just went in and took that plan, put the numbers to it, put it on the cutting machine,
Right.
and came out with beautiful pieces that go inside there and went together really easy.
Amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, we have quite a bit of people.
That is thrilling. I cannot wait to see it in the air. It's such a beautiful object.
Well, we've done one test pick.
Yeah.
We're waiting on some hardware to do another test pick. And during that test pick, it was impressive to see it. And we only had half the nose down. We had almost all the tilt. We just
Yeah.
don't have the space here because of the size of the guns. We had it down to the gun was just about an inch above the floor.
Now, I know that in the Star Wars universe, there are no, like, Phillips head screws and
Right.
things like that. Have you guys, in the pick points, like, come up with any futuristic hardware or something like that right at that pick point? Or are you just using what's efficacious?
Well, we're using what we normally would use on any aircraft here. We're using Juergens rings and bolting them on there, and those are certified. So
Yeah.
when we put those on there, we've got a certification that says it's been tested
Yeah.
to twice its strength, and so those work. They swivel to get in the angle and the rotation on it. So that helps us a lot. So
Yeah.
in that respect, we have to look more at the safety side of it
course.
rather than the aesthetic side.
Of course.
But we try to minimize it as much as possible so that they're not noticeable.
So that the illusion is there.
Right.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
This is amazing.